Welcome to the Ancient Light of the Yeshua Teachings 8-episode mini-podcast with actress, musician, and author Verinia Nia Peoples and ancient Aramaic wisdom keeper Dale Allen Hoffman. Episode 2, Letting Go of Past Conditioning.
I am so excited for this, Dale, and I want to welcome everyone. And my name, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Verinia. That's my birth name. Most people know me as Nia. And Dale, I think this is the most exciting course that we presented here. I know you, and I've worked with you, and I feel that the information that you have and the commitment that you have to the knowing is so deep and true and profound that it's going to open up a lot of doors for people now, especially now with everything that's happening in the world and our need to know what truth really is. And all of it, to me, is pointing us back to ourselves. Right. So everything that we're hearing out there, we're learning, oh my God, how did I think anything different than that? Like, what? How is this what I believed? And so it's not allowing us to put our power outside of ourselves anymore and begin asking, wait, what do I really know? And the only thing we have right now to trust is ourselves. And so the wisdom that you're bringing forth is so much more powerful now than even before, to me anyway. But for those of you who were not here the last time, Dale and I met when I started on my walkabout and was getting all this profound information, and it was really just blowing my mind. And I found him online and just took a chance and called. And he picked up the phone, and I was like, oh my God, I need you. And he taught me so much. It was almost like the knowledge that he has at that point acknowledged what I was learning from the sky, and from just other random things that were being brought to me. And I was so grateful. But we're all here. Yes. And thank you guys all for joining. And I think before, many of you guys are already followers of Dale's. Some of you have not met him yet. And so, Dale, is it okay if I just read a little bit of your bio, just a little bit? Okay, I'm just going to read it straight up. It says Dale is an ancient
It's okay,
Aramaic,
you can read
Dale.
it.
Dale is an ancient Aramaic wisdom keeper, mystic and energetic healer, revealing long suppressed ancient secrets and healing modalities. He shares a living, breathing vision of the original Aramaic Yeshua and Mary Magdalene energetic alchemy wisdom from the biblical Gnostic and Mystery School philosophies as one pure revelation. And so with that, what I'd love to do is take a moment and drop into the heart space and encourage everyone who is here for the first time with Dale to listen with your heart, because there are many words that we have programmed meanings into. And you've got to listen with your heart, because we are more than just our brains and our programming. So with that, would you like to drop us into the heart before we begin? I have a singing bowl here if you'd like.
I'd say just go for it.
Go for it. Okay. All right, so everybody take a deep breath in through the nose and hold it at the top, and exhale with voice. And again, in through the nose, hold at the top, and exhale with voice. And one more time. And just come fully present into the moment. Close your eyes and just listen. Thank you to all the masters that have come before us. And thank you for this time with Dale and with one another as we share this beautiful wisdom. Thank you, Dale.
Just like that. Thank you. You know, you mentioned something there. Let me, maybe if I get closer, you mentioned something there that at one point about, you know, the past and how it's amazing. Like with me, I've seen it over and over and over again. I feel like a lot of people, when we're talking about the Bible, they were programmed on some level, whether even a lot of them won't admit it. I feel like they feel they're not allowed to think about it. They're not allowed to step off the path. They're not allowed to question things. They're not allowed to look deeper. I will say, you know, people ask me a lot, why did I not go through seminary? I used to call myself what was the word? I don't know, independent scholar, something like that. Because I didn't want to go through the indoctrination. I wasn't interested in, you know, going to seminary, etc. Although I think some people did make it through that. Elaine Pagels would be a good example of someone who I think she's a rock star and she went through all that and she's still at Princeton today. But, you know, it's amazing. I had, actually, I'll say this, when I was filming my DVD, The Word, back in 2011, I think it was, I got this message the next day from a guy that was in the audience in the back. And it actually heads up the DVD right in the beginning. It says, I wept, I shook. It took all I had to stop the shaking. I almost had to leave. And there was this guy, his name's Johnny. I know him now. He was sitting in the back. There's a couple hundred people there. And he said he was literally quaking. The whole seat was moving and shaking. And and of course he's gay and he's Catholic, and just all these incongruencies that would seem incongruent. But he's an amazing person. And, you know, he had all the guilt, the fear, and the shame about being gay, which I'll just say now is 100%, we'll just call it BS and move on. But it's amazing how deeply entrenched the fear and the self-judgment and the criticism and that don't question it kind of thing really is. It's amazing. It's right. Amazing to me because, you know, I call it rattling the cage. I've got a video on YouTube and it was titled, you know, have I rattled your cage? And I, you know, that I asked all these people, I'm asking everybody in the video, please give me a thumbs down if I rattled your cage. And because there's somebody, like, as soon as I post something on YouTube, there's one clown that has, like, he gets notifications, and I'm saying he because it has to be a guy because no woman would waste her time with this. As soon as the thing posts, he thumbs down the video before he can even see it, you know, before it even starts playing. He thumbs down. Yeah. So I think that's kind of funny, but I asked for thumbs down with this one video saying, you know, if I rattled your cages, or if you just totally hate what I'm saying or you disagree with it, give me a thumbs down. And I think I got the percentage of thumbs up on that video was higher than any other video I ever had. Percentage of thumbs up into views. I'm like, come on, give me a thumbs down. The reason I say that is because, you know, there's no eye in the sky that you have to measure up to. There's not some overriding commander that's going to judge you because you're not separate from the one. Can't be judged in that way. And that's the thing people just don't seem to get is, and it's hard. I understand it. I get it. That we've had this whole vengeful, fearful, you know, God that, and I'll say the God of the Old Testament is not, I don't quite want to say Hebrew Bible. I want to say Old Testament because the Hebrew Bible and what we know of as the Old Testament are not the same thing. But you know, there's this vengeful throwing fireballs and like sacred hellfire thing. And it's amazing how even people that feel that they are, you know, and I understand, and enlightened on some level and more open, when you start getting into the Bible subject, you know, people freak out and they run for the hills. And because it's
inherent in all of the teaching is that you know, faith is a is a really important thing, meaning faith in what you're told, just faith in what you're told. That's it. And it's outside you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you want to be a devout Christian or a devout Jew, or whatever the devotion is to, and built within the teaching is this thing that if you ask, you are not faithful. Trust in what we're telling you. And I mean, as a kid, for me, I was just, I thought, well, God knows my heart. And if I'm really wanting to know, I need to be accountable. I just always had that bone in my body that was like, I can't just do what you say because you say so. I have an accountability to God. And so if I stumble, she is going to know my heart.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm going to be judged. And I'm held to a much higher accounting than to that of a church.
Faith's an interesting idea. Faith is, a lot of times people will hear me talking in a coffee shop, overhearing me in a conversation with somebody else, eavesdropping on what I'm saying. And they'll sort of lean over and they'll say, what is your faith? And I'll, of course, not to be a smart ass, I'm like, well, you're going to have to explain what faith means to you. Well, I know. My mother did say, it's better to be a smart ass than a dumbass. But to be a smart ass, they'll ask, what is your faith? And I'm like, well, you're going to have to explain what faith means to you before I can really answer the question. And I'll say, well, what's your religion? And I'm like, right, okay, I'm not going to go in a direction of that's not what faith means. It's funny because, there's a couple of things I can put here that people don't know that I think some jaws will drop. One is, first of all, and I think a lot of people know this, faith and belief aren't the same thing. Your religion is your belief. Faith is a different word. And I'll even say, this is something that's quite profound. The word hymen, I think, adults know what the word hymen means. Hymen's an ancient Aramaic word that is a filament or a very thin membrane between what's real and essentially the movie that you're watching, what Yeshua called mamuna. It's very, very thin. It's very delicate. And sometimes when that ruptures, it's not all roses and sunshine and, oh my God, I feel amazing, but rather it's a total and complete, Kundalini awakening, nervous breakdown, etc. But faith, a deeper aspect of that, the word in Aramaic is ha'iman uta. And just being really clear about this without going too deep, it's 4 phonetic sounds, hai, iman, uta. Now, I'm going to start at the end of the word. The sound ta genders the word feminine. What does that mean? It's girly. No, that's not what feminine means. It's like when I hear Father, Mother, God, I'm like, you're missing the point, or changing it from God to goddess. That's missing the point too. It's not even androgynous, not even beyond androgyny. When I say a word's gendered feminine in Aramaic, what that means is that it's a state of being. It's an attitude. If I said it was masculine, that would mean something that you hold in your hand. Like the pen is masculine. My perception of it is feminine. And of course, the feminine is what we were told not to look at. We were told not to look at the darkness, which is what the feminine is in the yin yang. So we have that feminine, which is the experience, which is the being. One could call it attitude today. The u sound going backwards in ha'imanuta is like ing in English. So it's action from that state of being, action from that attitude. Go backward again, we have the word iman in the middle, which is in Arabic today, iman's still the word for faith. What aman means, literally, it's the root of the word amen, proper pronunciation of that. Iman is like sticking a stick in the stand into the earth and kind of walking around it, ring around the rosy. It means essentially from this rooted, fertile earth, or from this rooted center, may all my actions flow. And in the beginning is high. So we have high, iman, uta. The high sound means when Yeshua said, I come to give you life and give it abundantly. That's the word haya or chaya. That's conscious life energy. So it's conscious of that rooted center where everything is birthing forth from. You're acting on it and it's a part of your being. So it's consciously acting from the rooted center of your being. What do I mean by that? Carlos Santana, when he hits a note and it just hangs there, he does these microtone bends and he'll just the most subtle vibrato, and it just hangs there like, that's faith. Greta Thunberg, when she was speaking in front of all these people about the environment, that's faith. When we are at our most authentic self, without the masks, without the fears and the phobias and all the other things that contaminate the screen, so to speak, more and more that we add into the membrane between what's real and this world that we're creating, the more wide open we are, the more we exemplify faith. Faith is a child, right as soon as they're born. Somehow it's been turned into this idea of something to live up to or something to believe in. Mm-hmm. But believing in something is not faith. It's like being the delicate with the law of attraction. If somebody tells me they're attracting a car, I'm like, what's obvious to you? And they're like, well, that I'm attracting a car. And I'm like, let's look a little bit deeper. What's really obvious? Oh, that I don't have a car and I'm attracting it. I'm like, oh,
I don't have one.
Yeah. So that's a lack of faith. That's belief, and that's what I'm saying. And if people knew that they, as themselves, authentically as they are, with no kind of accoutrements and no kind of bells and whistles, are not only more than enough, but they're everything. They are everything. Whatever God is, I am. The first reaction or response people have to that, some cry, but some who might have all that heavy conditioning in there, they're scared shitless. And they like gyrating in their seats. And I have people that fall on the floor and they're flailing on the floor. And it's amazing. In the beginning, that freaked me out. Not freaked me out. I was like, what am I supposed to do with this? So that guy, Johnny, that was sitting in the back of the room with his chair shaking, I'm so glad that he reached out to me, because he was like so totally, he called himself a recovering Catholic. And not that you need to recover from that. Different people have different perceptions of it. But it was amazing, all the guilt and the fear he had, even knowing it wasn't real or true. All that stuff that he had,
Dale,
building up.
Intense. Right. But I find also that people who aren't raised in any kind of church or temple, any kind of religion, have the same problems. The studying or the learning through a religion can add another layer of it or color it a certain way. But I find that all of us kind of come here not knowing or not remembering or not something. And there's my favorite quote is, it goes like this. It says, alive within the energy field of every single one of you is a light so abundant, so overwhelmingly alive, that to touch upon it would heal your longing hearts. And that thing, you touch that thing inside that, because we know that it is true, but we bury it through all of this conditioning, which is why I was so happy to see that your very first class in this course was letting go of past conditioning.
It had to be. You and I have spent hours talking about this, either on the phone or face to face, for years. And it's amazing how, and it's true, it's everybody. It comes from parent, and people say, kids are a completely clean slate when they come in. And I'm like, well, not exactly completely, because they're bringing in bloodlines and DNA and all kinds of stuff. I'm like, the being that's sort of temporarily housing in there, absolutely. There is, it makes me think of Anton Yelchin, who unfortunately we lost a few years ago. He got pinned against, a great actor, got pinned against the front gates of his house by his SUV. He somehow had left it in neutral, but he was in, I can't remember, I think he was on Star Trek, but he had this incredible film called Delivering Milo with Albert Finney. It came out like 20 years ago. And it was about this young kid. Well, not even, it was, but they show him as a kid, this soul in heaven, quote unquote, who's freaking out about going to Earth. And he's terrified. So they send him down, or they send Albert Finney down from heaven, who's like this, lapsed soul, hasn't done so well. And of course, he wants to get into heaven, but they don't want to let him in because they think he's going to muck the joint up. So it's like, okay, sort of like Clarence in It's a Wonderful Life. We're going to send you down to spend some time with this kid. And it's Bridget Fonda's in the movie, Campbell Scott, who's an incredible actor. And it's this incredible film about how it's almost like the souls are lined up and they don't know where they're going to end up or they all know exactly where they're going to end up with parents, etc. And they're literally consciously choosing, and this is what's in the Vedas and so many other places, consciously choosing the place where they can find the most growth. So if you think of the stuff that's going on in your life that's the most intense, the stuff that scares you the most, I tend to be one of those people that goes straight toward it. Not always, because there's also still those things that, we say that, oh, well, I'm afraid of doing blah, blah, blah. So you go and do it. And of course, I became a public speaker, which is like fear number one, I guess, for adults. But then there's those other things that even somebody like me, and I don't know, consciously what they are, when you start digging in there and you start throwing all this stuff out of the system, all that junk, occasionally you uncover certain things and you go, whoa, hey, wait a second here. Like me as a I often say, I've been victimized many, many times, especially as a child, by somebody in my family, but I've never been a victim. And it's an interesting place to be. It's being able to find the places that, that Pema Chodron would say, the places that scare you, and going straight into it. And I understand I tend to be more intense with that, but I think most people, we really need to be able to hold their hand and offer guidance, and not just kind of, 10 years ago, I tended to pull people straight into the water. Now I'm sort of doing better at pulling my boat next to theirs and gently helping them across, because it's utterly, when we really face ourselves, a lot of what's in there is utterly terrifying. It's not all roses and sunshine.
And would you say that when you come face to face with those things that are so terrifying, at least for me in my life, those things that are most terrifying are the things that need the most love. And it is the choosing of the love, whether it be for me or for someone else. And when I choose love for someone else, it's because I'm choosing love for myself also. But it is the choosing of it that gives the momentum to the raising of your own consciousness and your own expansion. It is not being given it is choosing it. And it is the divinity that is within us that we came here to remember.
Choosing's big. Most people don't learn how to choose here in the West. We just make decisions. We cut things apart into little pieces and pick the best piece, or the piece that we think will draw the least pain in our life. But to choose, to consciously make the choice. It's, there was something that in all my years of working with Stuart Wilde, who from one day to the next, I didn't know who I was talking to sometimes with Stewie, but he had this poster that he gave me going back like 25 years ago that a lot of people might not even know who I'm talking about. Stuart was a kind of a big name in the New Age movement back in the 90s. He passed about 8 or 9 years ago now, but he gave me this big poster with a quote from Guillaume Apollinaire, and it said, "Come to the edge," he said. "They said we are afraid. Come to the edge," all capital letters, he said. They came, he pushed them, and they flew. And I think about that feeling of like falling off of a cliff when I've encountered the things that were like those places that scare me, that on the other side there really is roses and sunshine. There tended to be some kind of almost like a falling backward off a cliff with my eyes closed feeling. It happens in meditation. It happens in breath work. You've done breath work with Loretta and I many times, or, laying down with Paradigm with all the vibrations going around. And if we could just let people know that it's on the other side of that. Somebody actually sent me an email a couple of weeks ago through my, from Denmark, I believe it was. Somewhere over there, Scandinavia, Netherlands. And they were like, I understand what you mean about the door or the gate. They said they were there and, not any kind of a drug thing, but she was just sitting in nature. And all of a sudden she felt like she was falling backward through some kind of wormhole. And I went, that's it. And I was like, what were you doing before that? And she was like, absolutely nothing. And I was like, well, there's one of the keys. It's being empty. It's being open. And there's a choice in that, because most of us, we're just so busy staying busy so that we don't get to that, because we know that as soon as we let all that stuff down, we put the phone down finally with shaking hand, that on the other side is that, oh wait, I don't want to look at that yet. And that doesn't even mean a particular
Right.
thing. It's just silence. We're not afraid of silence because it's nothing. We're afraid of it, I think, because it's everything, because everything's
Because it's
voicing all
everything.
at once. And we don't have to do it all at once, though.
Nope.
It's just a matter of whatever it is that's up in the moment, that we can have the choice to be present in that. And that's where grace comes from, because grace and gratitude in Aramaic is the same word. Grace isn't just bestowed upon the lowly heart. It happens through an awakened heart or a grateful heart. It's the same word, tebuta, in Aramaic. Same word in Greek,
That's beautiful.
eucharista, for both. It's not just bestowed upon us from outside, but it's actually awakened from within. That's something people should really
That's
know.
really beautiful. That's really beautiful, Dale. And would you say that people tend to fear the unknown and therefore stay in what they know, even if they know it's not the best? Like they know that it's not what they want. They're familiar with these feelings of just not wanting to be there, with no satisfaction in their lives or certain areas of it, but they will choose to be in it because it's what they know, as opposed to leaning into the unknown and discovering what's really there, the truth and the beauty that's really there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the, so I'm answering a question here too at the same time in the there.
Did you get Christine's? Yeah.
Yeah. The thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is, someone that's been like me doing this for decades, they tend to at first think that, we got it all worked out and everything's fine and cool. And they don't understand that we're all going through the same things. And I look back at who I was yesterday and it's like, wow, I was kind of an idiot. I don't say it that way. I'm not all the self-deprecation, but it's like, I'm constantly seeking to evolve, constantly seeking to grow. Last year was a perfect example, because back in, what was it, early March, I had this full calendar of events. And then like the second week of March, it was like dominoes going.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's, oh, what do I do? Well, I'm going to sit with myself. Okay. And at first I kind of got all this busy stuff going. And then it was like, I finally took the time to just be, and to just sit and be. And you've actually been at our house here, where it's like, I would just sit out front and people would walk by, with their dogs every morning. And I would just sit there on the porch and just watch people walk by with no thought in my head, and not necessarily needing to do something else or be somewhere else, but, very much John Kabat-Zinn, wherever you go, there you are, very Zen almost. And I think if there's any reason I keep running back into the burning building that people say of Christianity, it's because I know that so many people are caught in it. And it wasn't meant to have you caught in it. It was meant to actually free you. And to remember something like the fact that Jesus was not a Christian. And people say, no, he was Jewish. I'm like, well, he was Jewish, but he wasn't fully a Jew either. They're like, no, he was an Essene. And I'm like, well, he left the Essenes. They're like, yeah, but he had relations with the desert mothers and fathers. Like, yeah, but he was very solitary. Nothing quite fit him. He never, and I think that's a common characteristic I see of a lot of people, that I tend to, Loretta's like that. I am like that. Not you fit everywhere, but I mean, it's like I meet so many people who they're like, I feel like I don't fit in anywhere. They don't fit in this class, or they don't fit in that religion or that philosophy. And they tend to go to all these different places, and they go to a party and they're sort of in the corner because they don't fit in there. They hang out with their friends, they don't fit in with them. But these are all these eternal things that we've been carrying around since we're children, possibly even before that. So religion or not, it doesn't matter if you're Catholic, Baptist, agnostic, or atheist. We're all going to have to come through those same challenges and be able to spin them as something of empowerment. I'm glad for as crazy as it sounds, I have gratitude for the horrible things that have happened to me in my life, because I don't know where the hell I'd be if not for that. It's like, I feel like even the pain and the suffering and people hear me talking about how my dark nights of the soul weren't nights. They were lasted for years, and one lasted like over a decade. They're like, well, then what's with this whole mystic thing? Screw that. And I'm like, well, you don't think about it that way when you're in it. You're just sort of moving through. And who is it that said, if you're in hell,
Choosing step by
don't
step by
stop?
step.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
exactly it. And people don't remember, that you have choices. You always have choices. Always.
Well, and that gets back to what we're talking about today, which is letting go of past conditioning. And so with the series that you're bringing up here in the next 6, you began this for a specific reason. Give us examples of conditioning. Like some people can go, well, I'm not conditioned. Like I'm a free thinker.
We all are on some level. Well,
Yeah.
I'm not even going to go into politics, because you just think about, the last few years in politics, it's all about conditioning. It's all about, finding the conditioning and finding the way to drive the wedge through the middle of that. But just
Well, I'm an actress. That's how I make my living, is making people believe what I see or what I say. And I don't do that by trying to make you. I do it by believing it. I've learned how to believe it myself, and how to be filmed in a way that puts it all together with the music and all of this, that puts you in a sense of feeling and opens up your heart and makes you feel like it's true. That's awesome, my job. Though. I know that it's doable.
That's awesome.
So same thing with the news and marketing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but for me, I think one of the major things would be, and people say this on some level, they believe that God is within, or the kingdom of heaven is within, whatever it may be. But when they actually come down to that space of the realization of, wait a second, are you actually saying that, I get it. Jesus said you can do all that I've done and even greater things. But let me ask you a question. Let's get real about that. How often do you see in, standard exoteric forms of Christianity, how often do you see the exemplification of that? Almost never. It's just one of those things, we don't talk about it. We don't talk about that inside. No.
Almost never.
And we're going to get into that a lot in some of the calls that are coming up. I wanted to hit, I sat down with it, and I think it's a fluid list of what are the 7 sort of ways we get conditioned, which is the things that I sort of picked. And there's always a different kind of a list, but I picked the ones that just feel most ripe in the moment. And I feel like on some level that I'm tapping into what a lot of people are feeling. And it's funny how the first one, that we're going to get into next week is really all about sound and vibration. But yet when people think of the word spirit, they think of this kind of, what is spirit? Spirit's that
Ghost.
word that's thrown out. Oh, what's that?
Ghost.
Well, there you go. Well, that's it. Holy Ghost, boo, and they just don't think about the realization that, wait a second. There's actually things that Jesus said that, well, it's funny. They're actually they sound Buddhist almost, but that is so like, I don't want to get into like, what's in the future calls in terms of the content, but when you actually tell people that every single solitary thing that Jesus had, we all have, but a lot of it was just a matter of activation, a matter of coming into conscious possession of it, which happens through choice. And a lot of it also, it's funny, you don't really hear about the fact that it says that Jesus continued to grow in knowledge and power and et cetera, et cetera. It's right there in the Bible. We don't talk about that either. All these things are conditioned in. Another thing that would be conditioned in is something as simple as hell. We don't think about the fact that, how many people actually know, first of all, that hell as we know it today is only 700 years old, which comes from Dante.
I didn't know that.
Was written in Italian, for God's sakes.
Alighieri.
And he was a jilted lover, and he was trying to make this beautiful, poetic, almost mythology. And that was just kind of very quietly pulled in on so many levels into the Vatican, which was only a few blocks away. They just kind of quietly pulled it into the philosophies. How many people realize that hell isn't something you go to after you die? Hell is any moment of overwhelm. When you feel that, heaven is the birth of a child, heaven is the death of a child. There's a simple way of putting it. And both of them, you have that cyclic nature of life that you're aware of, but one feels like dramatic loss and one feels like, of course, dramatic gain. And all these things are conditioned in and they lay over top of our lives. And you start wondering, when you start pulling all the conditioning out, have I ever had a real moment in my entire existence? That's why he's always saying, be like a child.
So well, and Dale, and that is so profound, because I know on this journey, for those of you who don't know about, me, in the last 5 years, I've been on a bit of this walkabout and kind of released everything and just wandering and listening and learning and had some really profound moments. And they always happened when I wasn't expecting anything and my heart was wide open. And I mean, these mystical experiences were astounding. And then the judge comes in and says, oh my God, that's who you are. Now you need to learn how to be that always. And then I start judging myself and going, well, how come I can't create that again? Why can't I, speak to the trees and the animals again? Why did I have those days, those moments? And now that I've experienced it, I'm going to commit to learning how to do it like I would learn more math.
Yeah.
And it just shuts down. It's such that it's that judgmental thing that there's something I have to do to be more than who I am. And it's the release of that place as a child that I am. I just am.
That's it.
It's so beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. And then people, and you say that to someone, and including myself, it's like, okay, well, if that's it, then what do I do about it? It's always that. It's like, give me the 1, 2, 3, give me the 10-step process, the 5-step process. Look, if Don Miguel has 4 agreements, then give me 3 agreements. Let's get it done a little bit quicker, but I need some kind of a list. And it's just what we do. We're always in some kind of a process. I mentioned when we did when I did the call with you a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned how it's like a lot of this is really like, for me, it was like pointillism. I used to go to the Museum of Art up in New York all the time, and I would get really close to the Georges Seurat, which is, when you get close, it's just lots of paint just blabbed all over the place, and you get up close and you're like, okay, and then you start moving backward and you get away from the details and you start seeing the whole, and it's like, wow, okay, now I see, wait, that's kind of a face. Okay, wait a second, wait, there's a man, he's got a mustache. Oh wait, he's in a parade. Wow, look at that. And it's like, we're all so obsessive about trying to figure things out that we obsess so much over these details. All the conditioning plays into that. And we forget the fact that we're surrounded by, God, do I have the book sitting here? I got to read this. It's just an amazing, I was using this as a quote for my, in my program. This is from Sound, from Joseph Rael. He's one of my teachers. Amazing, Tiwa. He says, the mystery of life is very simple. So simple that anybody can understand it. The truth is this: sound is the basis for all that is. Everything is a power. It embodies an archetype. We are living in the midst of the mystery of life, but we are living in ignorance. We don't know that the room we are in is a holy chapel. The floor, the walls, and the ceiling are all holy vibrations. It's all about frequency, vibration, sound, and yet our mind filters a pure vibrational experience through all of our conditioning, the things that we've learned, the things we got from our parents, the things we got from former bosses, the judgment of being a kid, the amazing moments, the crappy moments. It all starts rattling loose when we have these pure, deeply profound, visceral experiences. And we all have the choice. We can be open in that and have this moment of expansion, awakening, and evolution, or we can say, oh, well, no, and allow all that other stuff to take over. We always have that point of choice, but it's at the root core of all of that is that idea of I am not enough. And it's amazing how much that one thing shades everything else. People come up to me and they're like, oh, I know you're going to think this is a stupid question, but there are no stupid questions. He's like, you should have heard what I was asking 20 years ago, or even yesterday. I just wouldn't tell anybody about those questions. But I am not enough, just that. But we are, because whatever God is, I am. So you're saying God is not enough? And people go, oh, whoa, wait a second here. And all these things flood out.
Let me throw it out to everybody in the audience. How many of you guys, raise your hands if you've ever felt like you weren't enough? Me. So much, so often. It doesn't matter how much success I've had or how much I've accomplished. Underlying all of it is just this feeling that I can't do enough. And then I feel like I've failed. It doesn't even matter the measurement. People think, oh, once you've made money, or you have a career, or you have your kids and they're safe, and the kids being safe is an amazing thing, but you still feel like it's not enough.
Yeah.
I'm not
That's
enough.
like, look at you.
And that underlies a lot.
It's like world famous Nia Peoples, and everybody thinks she's got it together, but no, she doesn't have it together. She's a complete mess.
Clearly they don't know me.
I'm kidding. But no, I mean, yeah, it's like when people find out that I'm a real person, they go, oh my God. Every once in a while, someone will put me up on a pedestal. I remember this one guy at a retreat a few years ago. We were doing a Mary Magdalene retreat. He was just very kid gloves with me. And I was just like, and I turned to Loretta at some point. Actually, I think Don was in this retreat, Don Peoples. And I just turned to Loretta and I was like, I've got to knock myself off. She's like, how are you going to do it? And I'm like, I don't know. And I kind of did, just by saying just something very clear to him, that everybody else heard, that was also very loving. And it was like he sort of stormed out of the room and then came back about an hour later. I don't know where he went. And he just unloaded and had and he was like, he acknowledged that he was leaning so much toward me to get attention. He said it was like I was his father or his mother, and he was trying to be more than he, and it was like, and I'm like, you already are everything. And that's the scariest thing of the whole process, I think, for most people, is that we are all that. Everything that Jesus was capable of, so are we. And guess what? He gave us instructions for how to do it, and we screwed them all up. No, okay, that's fine. But it's just allowing ourselves to be screwed up. That alone, I think, was the first step for me when I started getting into all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, wow, I feel so far away from all these people that I would go to these symposiums and stuff, but then I would quietly stand in the corner and watch them, and I'd hear the discussions and I'd hear them tearing each other apart. And I'd go to see this famous spiritual teacher and I'd watch the way he talked to his wife, and it was like, wow, okay, maybe it's not something that's outside of me. Maybe it really is inside. And I just kept, like I think I mentioned in the last call how much Wayne helped me Dyer. He was constantly just like, Dale, let it unflow or let it flow organically, let it unfold. And I was like, no, don't tell me that. Give me a book to read or something.
Right.
Like, no. And I did. And honestly, the process at times was very painful. But in the end, I can say now I really feel that I'm authentically me. But a lot of that came after lots and lots of pain, lots of breath work, lots of being able to feel the places inside of myself that I think I'm fortunate too, because I wasn't indoctrinated with too much in terms of the Bible. If I had lots of fireballs thrown at me, I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't.
Right.
So I think I had just the sweet spot of enough of an exposure to the Bible to really be able to want to do it. So, yeah.
Don says, Bruce Lipton says in Biology of Belief, that's a great book, by the way, the subconscious mind shapes 95% or more of our life experiences. Yeah. So Dale, what do you hope that people get from this course, from these 7 weeks?
At least, and I've been very conscious of this, is at least a bit more of a feeling of, it's not freedom, the word that I'm looking for, but feeling on some level as if what their gut's been telling them the whole time was correct. A lot of what I'm going to be telling
Yes.
people about what Jesus really said is stuff that we all knew on some level. We all already know these things. It's just for
Yes.
some reason, we thought that we weren't allowed to think. We were told not to think that way.
Right.
It's like, okay, wait a second. So, and I have a video about this. I think I might've done it I'm all just dropping everything. Here's a light. And it's like, if Jesus is the only begotten, then that means that there's only one true light. Yeah, but it's like there's billions of people on the planet. So that would be like me picking one of these dots on my face and saying, that's the one that's the only begotten. That's the miracle. But yet, how many lights are there really? There's just one. And of course, it's completely absurd for me to pick one of those dots and say, okay, that's the miracle one, not all these others. And I got to say that if he were here right now, well, he is on a lot of levels, but if he were here right now, it would be kind of like a WTF t-shirt. If Jesus was wearing anything when he comes back at the end of the world, it's going to say WTF with a big question mark. Like, what the did you all do here?
Yeah.
Like I'm talking about, it's inside of you. Actually, the word that means inside also means outside. It's threaded into your midst. He's talking about something that's already happened, but you do not comprehend it. Oh, the kingdom, it's already here. You just don't see it. All of that, you can do all that I've done and even greater things, and then still somehow that. But here's the thing, even with all of that control and the dogma and Irenaeus and Constantine and Pope Innocent III and all these scoundrelly scoundrelly characters that we've had, people say, like, why conceal that? Why allow the message to fall asleep? I'm like, because the reawakening is so damn sweet. Think about it. For most of the last 2,000 years, it's been really rare for someone to wake up, especially within the Christian frame, other than someone who's really deep into some kind of meditation, contemplative practice. But now all of a sudden it's like corks on a lake. And it's like, if I couldn't be doing what I'm doing 100 years ago, I would either be ignored or dead, maybe even 50 years ago.
Yeah.
When Billy Graham had his, and I've been saved by Billy Graham twice, I say, which is true, didn't quite take the first night. So I had to go back the second night to sort of have a better one. And here I am laying on the field in at Veterans Stadium I see Kathy Black is on, she's in Jersey. It's like I'm laying on the field at Vet Stadium, surrounded by, strangely enough, 12 men who were all praying over top of me as I'm laying there going like this. And then it's like I walk away and I get bombarded with all this Billy Graham organization stuff. And I read all the books, everything that they sent me. And then I still went, well, that was a great moment. And that happened in the midst of the dogma, because it didn't have to do with the dogma. It had to do with my open heart. It had to do with me making the choice to let go. And I think, if anything that I'd like to impart to people, it's just to allow them to let go. You don't need to measure up to something. You don't need to go and read thousands of books. I really just hopefully want to be able to impart the confidence. It's not even really an ability or a skill, but basically to allow them to think for themselves and find validation in that and find value in that without needing to look outside of themselves. They don't need me either. They already know it on some level.
Yes, of course. We all do. And all this, to me, it's like going to a psychic where you don't need them to tell you what's happening. You need them to affirm what you already know. Like, it's like, oh, I was right. Okay, I can do this. I know that this is what this is about. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Do you want to open up to some questions at all?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. Anyone?
Okay. Anybody have a question?
I just have a comment.
Yeah.
For Dale. Dale, blessings to you. Thank you. And Nia, thank you.
That's my pleasure.
So this is Christy here. My name is Stephen. I was introduced to your work about a year ago by some good friends in Blairsville, Georgia, who met you at Unity. I believe it was Unity Church of the Mountains.
Yeah.
In Blairsville. So they gave us one of your CDs and started listening to it, and have been a loyal and faithful follower of yours. So thank you so much.
Beautiful. Awesome. Where you all live? You live in Georgia? You live near Blairsville, or?
About 2 hour drive north.
Yeah, I used to travel there 2 or 3 times a year. And then they decided at some point they only wanted ministers ordained within a couple of different, like Science of Mind and I was like, I don't do ordinations that way. But then I ended up becoming ordained with the Alliance of Divine Love last year anyway. So, but yeah, awesome.
Got it. Yeah. So thank you so much.
It's great to meet you virtually, both
Nice
of you.
to meet you.
Stephen
Nice to meet
and
you.
Christy, was it?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Keep telling people.
Anybody else have a question? Christine.
I wanted to say thank you. Just a comment as well, just something that spoke to me in that, I think I told you this our last call, but Creole Catholic, born and raised in.
I remember that call well, because I remember you were sort of down on the floor and your husband's like looking in and like, what are you doing right now? But I remember your heart was just, I remember.
Yes. So. But yeah, I mean, for anybody here who has been raised Catholic and entrenched in the Catholic, community, that was me. And I had the inkling when I was a teenager to start taking comparative religions in college. And then I ended up leaving to be an actress as well. Came home, had children. I said this, I went back to doing what my cells, what my body, what my DNA was conditioned to practice, because now I'm in fear-based mode. I've got these people that I'm supposed to be raising. How do I do that? It was kind of like, okay, that's going to be my manual for how to walk this path with this family. And then the Catholic school, they were all in Catholic school. I was teaching at the Catholic. So I mean, like, you couldn't get more Catholic than our family. And then, of course, I had another, and I say reawakening, because I revisited what I was dancing with in my early 20s. And then this time around, about a year and a half ago, it just blew open. And it was right before, it was a few months before COVID. And of course, then COVID just kind of catapulted me even deeper. But one of the things that I wanted to mention was that, in my community, because it is so staunch Catholic, I had posed a question to one of my friends, and I said, this was a mantra that was going on in my head as I was walking this path of peeling back all of the conditioning, right? And just with fear, but like, I know that this is right because I feel it. And so I asked him, I said, we as Catholics say all the time, and we believe, and Christians, we are made in the image and likeness of God. That kept on going on and on and on and on. And I asked him, I said, do you believe that? And he said, I do. I said, then why do you believe anything less than of yourself, than what God made us to be? And it just brings me to tears every time, because it's like, as Catholics, we're taught this. We're taught that the saints that we love and admire so much are these channels that we are to follow and that we are to gain inspiration in their message. But we forget that those saints and those channels are exactly like you and me. We are no different. We are no different than God. We are no different from Christ. We are no different from Mary Magdalene. We just, like you said, have to choose to activate that part of ourselves that has forgotten. And that's what it is. It's about remembering. And that has been the greatest journey of the last year and a half, is remembering all of these, just remembering who I am. And it's been scary. It's brought me to my knees. I've been sobbing a lot more in the last year and a half than maybe I have been in my last 43, 44, 45 years. But those layers have to go, and they're continuing to go. And there's still stuff, happening, but every single day I experience something new in this choosing to activate that portion of me, that God within, and then having to help the children also, and then stepping back when I'm like, oh crap, okay, that was my conditioning that just said that to my child, I need to readjust. And it's a dance. It's a crazy day.
Well, and Christine, you've been so brave about it, because I think a lot of people who even were raised in churches weren't raised in communities where who your kids go to school with and who you have dinner with, and it's all wrapped around your fundraising. All of it is around people that go to the same church. And when that happens, you're so brave, because now what do? You've not only shifted how you think about who you are, but it's impacted the way you live, every aspect of your life. From the people that your kids go to school with, and who you socialize with, and who you fundraise with, and the conversations you have about your awakening. So kudos to you.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's one other person. He is actually a really good friend of mine who was going to become a priest, and then left seminary and is now no longer practicing Catholicism. He's going through his own situation, but I had shared with him this journey. And he did say the same thing. You're brave. And maybe Dale, you've probably felt the same. Nia, you felt the same. Somebody else must have felt the same. But when you go through this path, because it truly is the path that is the road less traveled for sure, it doesn't feel brave. It is scary, and it still is scary. And you lose a lot of relationships that were based in a different paradigm. And that paradigm is no longer yours. And so then you start to shed those relationships that aren't functioning from that same paradigm, and relationships, family members. So it is brave, but it is lonely, and it is a scary adventure at times, but it is so liberating. I mean, like, I'm on fire though. Don't get me wrong.
So Christine, what are you hoping to get from this course?
Well, just I think one of the biggest draws for me is just the fact to touch the ancient Aramaic-ness of Christ's message. Just that little tebuta. Just even that. Yeah. Things like that, those little morsels of information that just blow your mind. Gosh, grace and gratitude being the same thing in Christ's language. That's what I'm hoping to get. I'm hoping to get closer to the truth. I'm hoping to get closer to the actual message of Christ. And while I think we do know what it is intrinsically, because we are all just the same, in this day and age and in this space, I think being able to touch that ancient wisdom is so important in this journey, because it will help us to touch our ancient wisdom and the ancient knowledge that we have, that we've been carrying for lifetimes and incarnations.
Thank you, Christine.
So
that's amazing. Thank you for that. And Dale, I know that we're going to run just a few minutes over here, if everybody's okay with that. I would love for you to speak a little bit, if you would, about why this ancient language, other than the fact that it's Yeshua's language, but what is it about Aramaic that brings forth this information in such a living way?
Well, there's actually, I almost have two ways of looking at it. There's multitudes, but boils down to one, that Aramaic, there's something in, and it's really particular to Aramaic versus the Hebrew. There's certain things in there in terms of the way words were said, the way some of the syllables stack together, that's almost like modern psychology. There wasn't even really good translations until Freud and Jung really started kicking it in the late 19th, early 20th centuries to be able to understand a lot of what Jesus was saying. But even beyond that, to me, it's all about vibration and frequency. It's all about the harmonics and the melody. It's literally each of the letters reflects a sound, and the letter is the shapes of the letters are reflected in the tonality that go back way before even Aramaic. And they believed that when you make each of these tones, Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, you start going through the the alphabet, that when you make each of those sounds, you exemplify the vibrational experience of what you were expressing from within. And that was reflected in the sounds that you make, the hand gestures, which is where the letter shapes came from. And also, like as an example, the letter mem looks like this. It means water. The letter means God or everything. It was exemplified by an ox, a circle with two horns. Why? Because an ox was powerful, because it used all of its body holistically in a state of absolute wholeness. So it's like, you think about all the little things there. Bait, the second letter, was the differentiation between inside and outside. It meant house. And that's the shape of the original letter. It looked like a house. So it's like, there's something about Aramaic, just hearing it, it lights me up. The only other language, honestly, that lights me up like that is Lakota. Yeah, that just totally gets me like firing on all cylinders, where like my eyes are rolling back in my head just from hearing something, like just something rolls out. It's like, oh my God, the first time I heard Aramaic from Rocco Errico, actually, you could have peeled me off the ceiling. It was like, he's like, and I couldn't believe it. All of a sudden, there was like spiral galaxies and everything. It transcended anything my intellect could touch. And that's what I'm saying. Even the language itself is even more than what it means. Just the vibrational experience of it right there. So, yeah, it lights me up. That's for sure.
Well, thank you for this first day. And I want to thank everyone for being here, and would love to see you back next week. I'm super excited about it. And is there anything you'd like to say in closing?
Just be open and hold on, because the first thing I'm going to teach you is how to let go. So hold on for now. You're not going to be able to do it after the next call. So hold on to anything you need to for the next 7 days, minus an hour. And then just...
Well, thank you. It's so fun to be doing this with you. And I'm so grateful that you're here sharing with us for the next 6 more weeks. And thank you to everyone on the call. We will see you next week.
Thank you for listening to The Ancient Light of the Yeshua Teachings, 8-episode mini podcast with actress, musician, and author Verenia Nia Peoples, and ancient Aramaic wisdom keeper Dale Allen Hoffman. Please visit niapeoples.com for Nia's upcoming event schedule, books, and support product offerings. And please visit daleallenhoffman.com for Dale's upcoming event schedule, books, audio and video programs, support product offerings, and to join the free Aramaic Healing Circle email newsletter. We are committed to your awakening.